don't let your upbringing or the people around you influence where you want to be in life. Because we have this sort of phrase where sort of you want to be a product of your community. I think we should take it from a different lens where you don't want to be the product of your community, but you want to be the change in your community. So don't let, there's nothing that's going to stop you from wanting to achieve your goals. Don't be scared, don't be uncomfortable. Be comfortable being uncomfortable. Take that risk, right? Go outside your comfort zone, but you have a unique story. Be sure to share that story with other people and be sure to make an impact in whatever ways that you want.
One, two, three, four.
Jon-Marc, thanks so much for joining us on Spilling the Green Tea. It's been a few years now since we last saw each other, but it has been such a pleasure keeping in touch with you and seeing your growth over the years.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Melissa. I'm excited for it.
I'd love to jump in and, I've always been so fascinated and inspired about your own story as well. And curious if you can share more with us about, who you are, your story, and what led you to the Green Program.
I'm Jon-Marc McGregor. I was born and raised in small island of Jamaica, specifically Spanish Town, Jamaica. So I was born and raised there for 18 years. Then I decided I wanted to do engineering. So I decided to come to the United States and to pursue a degree in chemical engineering. So really my passion for wanting to do STEM and education really stemmed from my background. So I was born more in a rural community area, so we didn't have a lot of access to clean electricity or clean water. So I saw a lot of challenges that myself and my family was facing on a day-to-day basis. So I wanted to be a part of the solution one day to make people's life around me much better. So I knew I wanted to do chemical engineering specifically. But then throughout my time in undergrad, learned more about the concept of sustainability. It wasn't really a topic learned a lot back home in Jamaica, but knowing that people are having a lot of their time and efforts in improving people's lives and making it more carbon free and more able to make sure people are not affecting the environment. I knew I wanted to pursue a career more so in that. So then I decided I wanted to do a doctoral degree in chemical engineering, specifically in regards to utilizing renewable energy. So that's what a lot of my PhD was on. So while I was in graduate school, I always heard about the green program from my time at UConn because we used to have sort of these career fairs or they have like study abroad kind of programs. So I knew heard about green programs then, but the timeline of undergrad was kind of cramped, so I didn't get the chance to enroll in that. So I knew immediately once I was at UT Austin, I wanted to go and join the green program. And nicely, there's also other colleagues at UT Austin that were also part of the green program. So my colleague Sophia, she did it before. I think she went to Iceland. So she sort of revitalized my love for wanting to do the sustainability initiatives is why I wanted to join the green program. So I got to go to Nepal. The reason why I chose Nepal specifically was because of the idea of installing microgrid technologies was something that one, it may align a little bit with my research of trying to use renewable electricity, but the sort of the key notes of impacting the rural communities what struck me because as I mentioned earlier, I think that ties really well to my upbringing. So having the opportunity to help underserved communities was something I couldn't give up the opportunity to do. So I was glad to do the degree program to that.
When you say, I knew I wanted to do engineering and how it evolved into chemistry too, can you just unpack a little bit more about how you navigated your own interests and where your own skills can come to play for anyone who's like just thinking about their career or thinking about how to even establish or think about a major to focus on?
Yeah, so I think so one of the nice parts of why I chose chemical engineering was the breadth of sectors that you can get into. So you can get into pharmaceuticals, you can get into energy. So knowing that, I knew I wanted to be in the energy sector. But within that frame, the question that really drove me is what challenge do I want to solve? And I realized back in 2020, sorry, before COVID, one of the greatest challenges was climate change. right? So we have this sort of term I call the dual challenge, where we have, as scientists or engineers, we need to somehow be able to sustain or grow in energy demand while at the same time curb our carbon footprint. So that really struck me when I was in my engineering degree. So I wanted to do a career path in that. And then I realized that the only way to really develop a solid career was to do more advanced degree. So I did a lot of research in undergrad to work on similar projects, then had the opportunity to do a lot of internships in industrial sector to then have more insights of what it's like to be a scientist or be a PhD type researcher. And that sort of revitalized my interest of wanting to pursue a graduate degree. So it was from having mentors in academia and in industry to sort of give me a path of what is it like to have a future of solving this dual energy challenge. So that's why I went to do my PhD. So the main thing is just find a challenge that you're genuinely passionate with. It doesn't have to be energy, it could be any, it could be vaccine development, it could be plastic recycling. Find what niche you want to be a part of. Find good mentors and academic mentors who are working in similar topics that could be at university or other places as well. And they can guide you along what sort of universities or professors are out there that can help you gain a passion for doing a PhD.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I hear you talking a little bit more about like this balance between striking academia, but also just going out and trying and interning and learning about different jobs and industries. What was that like for you?
Yeah, so the first thing you definitely find out immediately is the focus is different when you're in academia versus in industry. Academia, rightfully so, is more so to develop thinkers and think of philosophers per se to develop new knowledge. So thinking, 5, 10, 20 years ahead of time. Unfortunately, in industry, we understand the construction of corporate institutions. They're to drive solutions, drive products for people to sustain their lives now. So you can not really necessarily work on 5 10 year projects, but be able to work on challenges and projects that will help people immediately. So being able to focus more so and not worried about too much fundamentals, but work on how can I develop this great product that will improve someone's life. That's going to require a lot of uh, creativity, a lot of drive, more so than you would do in academia, where you have a lot of time to make errors and fail. But having more collaborative people who are working on the exact same project as you is kind of the difference in academia versus industry.
That's great. Thanks for that insight. Going back to the travel piece of it, when we all travel, there's always like a list of first or bucket list things that we want to do. Talk about one of, if you had like one of those first moments in Nepal with the Green Program too, and maybe unpack that experience a little bit with us.
Yeah, so as I was saying in the beginning, I classify myself as an island boy. So I was really just centered in Jamaica for a lot of my life. So I never really did any long distance traveling. The furthest I've been to was the United States. So that was also an additional incentive of, getting out of my comfort zone and traveling elsewhere. So I took this almost 10 plus hour flight to Nepal, which obviously was the first time I was going this long distance. And obviously that was kind of scary at first, but it was something I wanted to, push myself like, hey, there's much more to the world than the Caribbean or Latin America, and then there's other places you can explore. So that was also one thing. But then the other thing was doing more outdoor activities. It's not something I find myself. We don't really have much hiking or those kind of things in Jamaica. It's mostly beaches. You go to the rivers, you go to, enjoy the land. So hiking in sort of the Himalayan region was also a first experience for me. So that was also, obviously I was struggling a bit. So gladly a lot of people at Green Program were helping me to do the trek. So I was really thankful everyone was waiting for me to climb. And then when we reached the top, I was really happy for myself and for everyone else who was enjoying the views of seeing parts of Mount Everest and so forth. So that was the first for me.
Oh my gosh, that view was incredible, wasn't it? It was
Yes.
like a, what was it? Was it a lighthouse? What did we climb
Yeah,
over?
I think it was a lighthouse that we were able to see, and then we use a sort of telescope, miniature telescope to see some parts of Everest
Yeah.
Peak or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember you, Shanti, and I were just we constantly kept looking. She's like, "There's Everest, that's
Yeah.
Everest," and she was
Exactly.
so excited to see it. So yeah, pockets of joy for sure. I mean, what? Tell me more about like what pushing yourself out of that your comfort zone. What did that do for you? Does that unlock anything for you, or any sort of learning from experiences like that?
Yeah. So that's it's human nature to be comfortable, right? You don't want to put your body under, stress or anxiety. So naturally, you just want to do what you know, do what feels right and comfortable. But at that point, you don't get to test your limits, test yourself of what can I actually accomplish outside of, academic rigor. You wanted to talk about how can I grow better as a person? Because you don't want to limit yourself in doing certain tasks or things. So from there, I've been taking more outdoor sort of experiences from my experience there. So I've been doing more walks, of doing more hiking, even in small sort of like uh, hills here in Austin. Going to more like lakes and doing more water activities has been something fun. Unfortunately, in Texas, we don't have the opportunity to do more winter sports, but hopefully, I will travel more to like a place like Utah or a place like Colorado to experience skiing and snowboarding. So knowing that there's many things you can do uh, wouldn't have been possible if I didn't take that next step of taking that trek in Nepal.
And now you're going to all these incredible places around the
Yes.
world and hopefully
Yeah.
just continuing to push, your own boundaries in new ways too. So super proud of you to see you carrying that on
Yeah.
in different ways in your life too. I love that. My next question for you goes back to your roots in Jamaica and how you said, your worldview was Jamaica, a little bit now more of the United States and more places as you travel. But are there any parts of home that you've carried with you?
The one thing that I carry with myself is if you talk to most people who travel to Jamaica, they always say they love the people. And the reason is because how we're raised is that we care not just about ourselves, but we care about other people's well-beings. So having being someone who is always checking up on people, someone who always, cares about other people, is something I carry with me a lot. So I do a lot of mentorships just because of that. And I think the drive that people back home have, because we understand that nothing will be given to us. We have this saying called "We're little but we talawa." It basically means, despite being a small island, we have such great influence in different aspects of life, whether that be sports, whether that be music. So we carry a lot of pride as a country. So I try to take that sort of idea to academia, into engineering and STEM, that despite not having any sort of role models in the back home who did sort of field, I know that the drive that I see people who do well in sports like Usain Bolt, for instance, and Bob Marley reggae music, like they also came from a small island and they still made a great impact. So what's stopping me from doing the same thing in STEM and education? So that's what I really bring with me towards whatever I plan on doing for the rest of my career.
My limited experience so far with Jamaica and the people of Jamaica have been exactly what you've said. People are so, as you know, we're building a program in Jamaica
Mm.
for December that's coming up. And our partners, the people that we've met, like everyone is just so interested in not just their part in the program and like, speaking at a session or doing a site visit. They all want to know like how else can we help in
Yeah.
every other way, or oh, maybe I know this person, I know this. So I absolutely love that. And that's, you don't find that everywhere. You talked about the problem that you were most excited to solve within
Mhm.
your work. Climate change is massive and there's so many facets, and I know so many students that we work with or professionals more and more just like, where do I even start with climate change? Walk us through your process of how you got to the point of what you were doing research on for your PhD.
It really stemmed from I attended a technical talk in my sophomore year of college at ExxonMobil. And this is where sort of the vice president of research at the time, VJ, who's one of my great mentors, he brought up this concept of this dual energy challenge. And he really pulled the lens on this is not just a problem in the United States, but it's a really a global challenge, which makes it really complex, especially knowing that everyone's energy mix is different. So even when we went to Nepal, for instance, we realized that some of their energy sources coming from hydro energy, right? Because there are a lot of water, a lot of dams present. In the United States, it's quite different. Same thing in Jamaica is quite different. Some maybe power or solar wind. So he really put forth this sort of prompt or frame that we need to think creatively how we can not just we don't want to change how people go about their lives, but we need to come up with ways of creating this sort of environment around them that they are not impacting the environment negatively. So that's essentially what the dual challenge or climate change was. And I understood that everything that around us has some, energy from fossil fuels, whether that's our laptops or chairs or blankets, they all come from some fossil fuel derived products. So what really drove me was, can I, in a way, allow us to utilize that CO2 that we emit to the atmosphere, and let's view it not no longer as this sort of harmful, wasteful product, but can we utilize that CO2 and form it into the products that we need? And what this will do is that it will create a carbon neutral, closed carbon cycle where we can essentially maintain our way of life without emitting any excess amount of CO2. So that is what I wanted to do my PhD in. And to drive this sort of research, I wanted to no longer use heat. I want to use electricity, hopefully from renewable sources, as their prices are exponentially decreasing over time, which is great, right? Electricity or solar or wind is becoming much more cheaper, much more available. So if we can hopefully create more solar farms, more wind farms in the United States or elsewhere, we can drive this sort of reaction to convert CO2 into these products that we utilize on our daily lives. And that way we can no longer concern ourselves with polluting the atmosphere, but that we're just making the environment much more sustainable. Colleagues are going to continue work on this sort of topic that I spent a lot of time on, but I'm taking a different avenue. So there's, as you mentioned earlier, there's many different facets to sustainability or climate change. And what I'm doing after graduate school is I'm going to tackle the plastic problem, where we see that in many different eras, we have a lot of accumulation of plastic waste in our waters, which is damaging marine lives. So after graduate school, I'll be working for Dow Chemicals, mainly in their packaging team to work on more sustainable packaging. Maybe we can develop more biodegradable technologies or that can, not so they can decompose readily over time, but overall, just improve how we are lowering the carbon footprint within the packaging sector is what I'm trying to do.
That's exciting. And I love that. And I think that's such a good example of how somebody can be learning and absorbing so much information, putting research out there, but pivoting and evolving your life, your career, your impact in different ways too. So that's a great example, and congrats on being able to continue the journey at Dow. What would you tell, let's say, a 16, 17-year-old student, eager student from Spanish Town, Jamaica, who wants to follow this sort of path? Like, what advice would you give?
First thing I would tell them is don't let your upbringing or the people around you influence where you want to be in life. Because we have this sort of phrase where sort of you want to be a product of your community. I think we should take it from a different lens where you don't want to be the product of your community, but you want to be the change in your community. So don't let, there's nothing that's going to stop you from wanting to achieve your goals. Don't be scared, don't be uncomfortable. Be comfortable being uncomfortable. Take that risk, right? Go outside your comfort zone. Just take your pride because, we, as I mentioned earlier, that another phrase back home is that we're out of many one people. So we've been around people of all walks of life. So that's going to be to your advantage when you come to the United States. You're going to be around a lot of people with different backgrounds and different way of life, but you have a unique story. Be sure to share that story with other people and be sure to make an impact in whatever ways that you want. And for instance, if you want to go into, you know, sustainability or climate change, ensure that you find a topic that you think is quite interesting because you want to work on something that you love. You don't want to walk about life doing something that makes you unhappy. You know, follow that dream and follow that passion, and it will lead you to many places in life.
There's somebody who led that by example for you in your life too.
In Jamaica and Australia, in many different developing countries, there's sort of these sort of five careers that you're taught growing up is deemed to be successful. You either become a lawyer, you become a medical doctor, you become an accountant, or you sort of become a teacher, right? So engineering was never something that was brought up. So I was actually planning to become a medical doctor growing up, just because my mother wanted me to do that. But I had teachers back home who saw that I was really sort of intrigued by mostly the science, not biology. I was mostly intrigued by like chemistry and physics. And one of the my math teachers was a trained chemical engineer from Cuba. So he was the one that told me, "Hey, John-Marc, have you ever thought about doing chemical engineering?" This was when I was in seventh grade. And I said, "No, Mr. Hendricks, what is that?" And then he would sat me down after class at 5 p.m. and then he would tell me a little bit about what chemical engineers do. And that's what really sparked an interest of me wanting to pursue that career. Then I tried to see, is this offered in Jamaica? At the time, it wasn't really accredited. So I knew I had to do other paths of doing the SATs and so forth to come to either go to the US or go to Canada, for instance. And that's where it really sparked my interest to become a chemist.
Does he know that? That's incredible.
Yeah, yeah. So we're still friends today. He came to my defense.
Oh,
I tell him all the time, like I wouldn't be here without you, Sir Hendricks. So he's now in England, continue to inspire students in mathematics and chemistry. So I tell him that, hey, hopefully you can find more students to inspire, like how you inspired me.
oh, beautiful. Those were the more of the serious questions. I have a few fun rapid fire questions if you're ready for it.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, awesome. So I'll ask a question and it's typically just like a one word answer, like a phrase, quick response.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, first one, your go-to travel snack.
Cheez-Its.
Ooh. One thing you packed to Nepal but you didn't need. That's probably a good thing you didn't need it. Favorite music artist right now.
Oh, right now it's Rodway.
Getting lost or sticking to the plan.
Sticking to the plan.
Okay, lab work or site visit.
Site visits, for sure.
You don't like writing up lab reports all day?
No, no, not at all.
One thing that your PhD survival kit includes.
That's a great question. I think you require my survival kit's definitely my earphones to listen to music.
It's a good one. Sunset or sunrise?
Sunrise.
You're a morning person?
I would like to be.
Yeah.
The sunset just means the day's over, so I like
Oh,
the sunrise.
that's nice. First thing you did after defending your thesis.
I went to party.
Rightfully so. And then the last one word to describe your TGP experience.
Inspirational.
Awesome. Thanks so much for playing along and answering the questions and having the conversation with us. Is there anything else that you want to include or that we didn't touch on that you wanted to add in?
Yeah, I would say for those who are thinking about the green program, I would say it's a great investment. I know at first it can seem like it's a lot as a student, but they have a lot of great scholarships that they offer, a lot of different ways of funding to allow you to do these programs. And I will tell you, there's nothing like it. I've looked, I've searched for different study abroads, and this is one that I truly believe is unique in the sense that it gives you a fully in-depth viewpoint of how to be a sustainability advocate, more so than a student. So that's something I would recommend to anyone thinking about the green program. So yeah.
Thank you. I will take a shameless plug any day, and that was always that was so nice to share coming from you too. So like this is what we're here for. It's really to balance what's happening in the four walls of a classroom or a lab, and be curious and go see the world and see what solutions and challenges are there, because we really need to understand our world's challenges before we can even get in a lab and start solving things. So I really appreciate you being a part of our journey as well, and so proud of everything you've accomplished. Can't wait to see the good impact that you're going to continue to make on the world too in your next chapter. So thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Melissa.
And yeah, it was fun.